This video will show you how to quickly determine what your healer peers are doing in trials using ESOlogs.com so you can clone their builds. It works for any role like tank or damage dealer too. No worries if you're on console, as we're just going to be observing public information on what other players are running. It's better to do your own research rather than just copy others. However, it can be helpful to see what other players are doing in content that lets them be successful. Maybe you're short on time and just need to quickly set up something that will work. Or maybe you're a raid lead needing to see what other groups are doing. Start by going to esologs.com. Next, we need to scroll to the trial we're interested in investigating. Click the three lines if you're on mobile, or the box that says trials if you're on desktop browser. Both are in the same upper left location. This will bring down the drop-down for all trials. Let's pretend we've joined a Dawnbringer progression team as a healer. So for this example, we would scroll down to VKA and click Rankings. This brings us to the rankings just for Kind's Aegis. It should look like this. Results are sorted by score from highest to lowest. It's important to have higher scores for analysis so you can be reasonably sure the builds you're looking at are working. If a group did not log, it will not be here, so understand we're only seeing data people chose to log and upload. Next, we need to isolate for healers, or whatever role we want to analyze. Click All Classes and hover over the submenu All Classes and select Healers. Now we're just looking at healers, but the default setting shows all scores regardless if the log is public or private. Some score groups keep their logs private, so sometimes the best scoring healers aren't logs we can analyze. Therefore, we need to click to Logs Only to isolate for public logs we can actually view and analyze. A 250k score in Kinds is really good, so as these public logs are all around that score, we can assume they're decent groups. Keep in mind more difficult strategies are used to obtain really high scores, so if your goal is just a trifecta, the top scores might not be the best for you to analyze. Those strats may be a lot more difficult than what you'll be using. Try to determine what kind of score your team is aiming for so that you can check logs with similar scores. But to start, let's look at a higher scored public log. I'm going to click myself since I don't have any problem sharing my setup with you all. Just click the character name of the healer, Thick Magic, to go to its log. When we click this, it defaults to the final boss. Since endgame healers use varying setups instead of a one-size-fits-all build, we'll need to click out to the overview of the trial and check each boss and trash pulls to see what their setups were for each. Click out to the trial overview by hitting the boss's name. Let's start by analyzing the first boss, John Deere the Butcher. I'm clicking a faster fight time as I want to analyze a pull where the group's strat likely worked as they intended. This brings us to the desired boss fight, but its default is the damage section. Click instead to Summary. Under Summary, we can scroll down to check what role each player was in case we forgot their name. Under the name of the boss, click All Friendlies and select the healer, in this case Thick Magic. Finally, this brings us to the summary for the healer's build that we wanted to see. This is the page you use to copy their build. We can repeat this for other bosses and trash as much as we want. We can repeat this for other healers too if we want to look at a bunch of different groups. For example, if we want to see the final boss, go back to the trial overview by clicking John Deere the Butcher at the top left. We can then click on the final boss Fallgraven. Usually our previous filter for the healer's summary still holds when we stay within the same log, and we can see their build for the final boss. If the filter didn't hold, just repeat the process of getting to the summary and isolating the healer. We should also check trash, which is a little trickier as it just names each pull after an ad. Try to keep in mind the progression of time since the group would have entered the trial, and you can generally figure out which trash was which by the time it was pulled. So the half-giant bulwark at 7:11 p.m. is probably the first trash pull, Trash 1, Wave 1, as it is the earliest recorded fight of the log. Clicking this as an example, we can see the healer's trash build. Noticeably, they're running Olarima on trash instead of SPC that they're running on bosses. There's often a lot of variation between how different groups will set up for trials, and especially trash, so your raid lead is the best source for what you should run in your group. Ultimately, all team composition decisions lie with the raid lead. Don't just analyze one log. Repeat this process with a few healers to see if all healers are doing the same thing or if there's a lot of variation between what they're running. Look for trends among high-scoring healers. If you're new to analyzing logs, have a friend who is good at analyzing check your conclusions on what setup you think will be best, as a lot of mistakes can be made when interpreting logs. This same process works for any trial and any role. Just repeat the steps in this video for whatever you want to analyze.